Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kakoli Ghosh today. So I'm going to start with a very brief introduction about her. Dr. Kakoli Ghosh works at the Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome, Italy, where she is part of the management team of the strategic program on sustainable food and agriculture. She has extensive international experience in sustainable agriculture-related policy development and technical assistance. She strongly believes in building partnerships among interested stakeholders to support and promote FAO's mission of global food and nutrition security. She is from India and holds a doctorate in plant sciences from the University of Oxford, UK. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kakoli Ghosh.
Good morning, everyone. You can hear me without the mic, I am presuming, right? So, yeah, I know, it's easier. And thank you for coming. Thank you for coming also for helping me come to Lebanon. I have enjoyed every day here, eating the wonderful food, meeting absolutely excellent persons, and sharing and learning a lot. So thank you very much. Today, I'm going to take a little bit of time to basically talk to you about some things which you know, really. What is happening? I haven't moved anything. Okay, very good. So I know today we are looking at very interesting phase of so-called work where there's a lot of interest in something called SDGs. I know you are hearing a lot about it all the time. I also know that our countries, people are engaging and trying to work in many, many areas. We also are looking at young people, youth, to be able to engage, share better with us. So I thought I'm going to put together a question to all of us who all work here, and to see if we can together think of ways, new ways, innovative ways, different ways of looking at some of the old intractable issues as well as the emerging challenges that we have here. So basically, I want to talk about SDGs. I know you know also the current trends, something on transforming to sustainable agriculture. What does it mean? What can it be done? Is there a way to measure sustainability? And some messages and take-homes, particularly for the young generation, the next generation. So SDGs are about doing something by 2030. I'm hoping to retire by then, but I know many of you will not, so you have a long way ahead. So I'm hoping that you will think through of what to do and take this opportunity. It is really an opportunity to take this opportunity and to transform some of your ways of thinking to open a new approach. As we go around, let me tell you why we have to do this. You notice I have made a little round on this transforming our world. So this wasn't done by any particular organization. This was done by each and every country. Somehow it was felt, somehow there was a global idea, and somehow let's say an excitement was built that somewhere we have not quite met our promise. We have somehow not been able to achieve all the good things that we keep thinking about. We are getting further down and down. We need to do something. So this was a demand for a transformational change, and I want you to think what that word transformation means. It does not mean just change. It does not mean just something happening, rethink, revise, rethink. It means something to move beyond, something where you are looking at some more connectivity. Intuitively, we are connected. We look at many things in a connected manner. But when it comes to work, we start becoming our own little world, and because it is easier to get things done. So this was the demand. This requires institutional innovations, and it's very important to underline the word institutional. It is going around new thinking, new approaches. It requires and demands us to do that. Of course, it requires partnerships, which goes behind sayings. Now, SDGs is a challenge. remember, it's an aspiration. It is not something we have to completely achieve, but we have to look towards it. It comes with these 17 goals, 169 targets, 231 indicators. These are measurements. These are measurements. Universities have a very important role, very, very important role in all these targets and measurements, and you name it. But where are we with that? How are we doing it is our real challenge. Within FAO, of course, FAO is the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture. FAO was given the responsibility somehow to be a custodian of a few indicators, and I'll come to that. It was also seen that FAO may have the necessary wherewithals to provide some directions for transformational change for sustainability in agriculture, and why we will discuss that in a minute. And then, of course, the measurements. What are you measuring and how you are measuring when you are talking of sustainable agriculture? Why FAO? Because somehow, I know you have seen this diagram in many, many places, we cannot pray in empty stomach. Food is really the way to, very important. Food is important. Agriculture is a component which provides the food. So here we are looking at the broad food and agriculture sector, where we are looking from nutrition to plant health to forestry to fisheries and livelihoods. It is not one or another. So this is the transformation you are trying to think of, that every time you are thinking, you are looking at this linkage and connectivity. This is a challenge. We have not been thinking and reading and studying about it, but if you go to a farmer's field or you go back home, you are not thinking of food. You are thinking of your children, their school, their college, their admissions, everything else. So there is a linkage. It's the same idea, approach we can bring to our work, bringing a better coherence where needed. However, we are challenged by these numbers. I don't want to say, go point by point. The only point I want to make here is, while we are making these kind of good, ambitious plans and ideas, these are some of our realities. We have almost equal number of malnutrition and obese people in the world today. This is unthinkable even 10 years ago, almost. We have almost climate change and conflicts are seeing a direct linkage. It is creating more and more pressure on the work, on food, on production, on livelihood, everything. And of course, loss of natural resources. I was here, I had an opportunity to also go around the country a little bit. I heard it continuously in many ways, how much we need support for managing water better, managing our forests better, our lands, and so forth. So is agriculture responsible for everything? No. But has agriculture become unsustainable somehow? We can question ourselves, and some of the answers may not be what we would like to hear. Sometimes it is this because it's not that we don't mean good or we didn't want to, it's just that sometimes the pressure or directions of our work were not taken much more coherently. The linkages may have been missing. The narrow genetic base, I am a geneticist by training, so that's the one that always kills me, fascinates me. We ended up eating 3 or 4 crops. And Ikarda, Hassan will know, we are from a land where we have almost 1,000 varieties and species of food that we used to have, we are used to having. We have narrowed the genetic base so much that we are at the risk of even losing some of our own heritage and culture. This is direct consequence of our own choices. This, nobody asked us to do it, but we have. So a lot of these require us to somehow rethink what paradigm shifts we are talking about. Fortunately, even before SDGs, FAO recognized these very strongly, and even before FAO SDGs and this thinking was global, FAO tried to do something about it, thinking that we were looking at extremely unsustainable approaches which we needed to connect and find a way. And what we tried to do is very straightforward. we said we will not be able to do only sectoral work. We have to bring the interlinkages and connectivity. And today and before today, when we were talking with Dr. Matar, it came out very strongly, this philosophy, these principles of connecting, finding a way to engage with each other is very critical. And universities are probably the temples for this kind of thinking, if you think about it. In this slide, the only thing I want to stress is the last one, adapting governance. You know, all those 4 on top are about productivity, ecosystem, natural resource, but in the end, that is the word where it all boils down to. That policy linkage is where most of the time we are not there. Most of the time. So it is extremely important to consider the issue of governance together, even if you are doing a regular, normal work on food production. What is the governance mechanism? Is it looking at these 5 principles? So in this case, our actions from FAO, we promoted something what we call the strengthening sustainable food and agriculture approach. We are promoting agroecology and diversification very strongly, because we recognize this requires a transformational shift. We have to find a way. How is the challenge? And that's one of the ways. Promoting water scarcity, this particular region, the top priority is always water scarcity, but it comes with other baggages of nutrition, malnutrition, obesity, and others, which we are not really always taking care of. So again, it has to be not sectoral, but in a way connected, and we had a little discussion before. It seems we are on the same page on these things. Most importantly, talking about this, FAO was asked, our management was asked us, and FAO was asked, okay, all these are nice, good, important, but what are you going to do about it, or what are you doing about it? Is there any way we can work to present a practical approach? And that's when we had to think, although in a global broad way, we still had to think of something that makes a difference. What is it that we are talking about? What will transform agriculture? What can we do and how to do it? And yes, there are 5 principles that I was talking about, but FAO tried to figure a way out to simplify with 12 steps, 12 basic steps. And in those 12 basic steps, what can you do to help countries to look, relook, rethink, re-evaluate the way they are doing? Is it possible? Remember, this is not something as a prescription. This is a framework approach. This is a broad approach. It can be applied to a ministry. It can be applied to a university. It can be applied at the level needed to work with partners. So as I go along, this is something that we have recently published, and it has been well accepted because it allows us to position, number 1, food and agricultural issues in the context of the all requirements of SDGs. That's the number 1. Number 2, it allows multiple SDGs in a country to be addressed, and I will show you how it can be done that simply by focusing on these issues which require ecosystem approach, food approach, production in a sustainable manner, and so forth. The steps that are so-called steps, so this is from the book, and I shared a couple of copies, but it's all online, so it's all there. Most important when you are talking of any kind of transformation is to have a political will, most important. And most of the time, this is where the biggest challenge lies, because we can do whatever we want and however we want, produce the best documents. If there is no absorption, we are really stuck. So that is why building this coalition, building this like-mindedness to have that approach is where we are. This is something we want to also promote here in Lebanon at the highest level with your support. Once the political momentum is there, we should be able to look at some things differently. We should be able to link agriculture and nutrition. It should not be separate. We should be able to see nutrition and water management. Remember, most of the time we are talking about, whenever we are talking of nutrition, It seems science is showing us it's the water, which is the biggest issue for diarrhea and undernutrition in children. So there is this issues that we cannot close our eyes because those days are over for now. And finally, of course, the most important is to have some budget and a budget line. So the process, it is a process. It is not going to be all linear. It is not going to be exactly like the bee flies here. But somewhere we have to start. Whichever way we want to start, but we got to do it because time is running fast. And as I was mentioning, all those unsustainability are affecting us, our children, our future too. Those 20 actions that I mentioned, well, they are not, again, something completely out of the blue. What we have tried to cluster some of these that even within a framework of work, you are thinking of doing something, a focus, because everybody must have some focus. There are some issues you must look at whenever you're looking. If you're looking at productivity, building producers' knowledge about access of market is essential. Otherwise, the productivity and quality is not of any use. So it's not something that you should be standalone. And it is a social issue, it's an economic issue. At the same time, it's a technical issue. It has to be linked. It is not just farmer can afford to produce and not sell. These are the kind of things that we have to think of. Next thing that we have to think of is strengthening linkages and synergies. Now, this is agriculture, food, you call it whatever you want to call it. This is what it is all about. And if you see these links, the red lines are the negative impacts, the green ones are the positive impact. I don't have to explain much. Without even data, somehow it captures what we are talking about. There will be trade-offs, but there will be a way to recognize these linkages. It's not going to be enough to say, okay, I'm just going to stop food loss and waste. We also have to see the other aspects of the chain, how it is coming, where it is going. This is very simplistic, but strengthening the linkages, strengthening the synergies, it can be small, but it has to be done. The sooner, the better, and talking, dialogue, discussion are the key. Then only the real data of these kind of things can come up. Second is to connect smallholders with markets. This is from the book. What I was trying to say here is for each of those actions, FAO has a set of tools, but there are other tools as well. We have tried to provide some linkages to those tools that can be used. They are there. Remember, earlier even FAO could be working sectorally, soil, water, land, this, that, and other. But here it's bringing them together. Bringing them together, why? Because it makes far more sense, even for all of us, to be able to see these connections, see the integrated approach and its concepts, how to do it. Our challenge really now is to place it on the ground and see the value for money, whether it is making any difference, where we can start, where we can do something. The third one is, of course, about addressing trade-offs. As I was just mentioning, there are a number of trade-offs. This won't be easy. This cannot be easy. There are a number of trade-offs that have to be looked at. There are, this document, this particular about the proportion of agricultural land cover is just from Science last week or so, which is very interesting. If you look at, this is what we are looking at as the direct issue of a trade-off, because here we have the proportion of land cover and the impact on bees, and therefore the production of fruits. So apple in this case, it can be replicated in any other place. You will be seeing this. What is the trade-off that you are looking at? It's not about the bees, it's not about the apples, it's not about the land proportion of land cover alone. It is these interlinkages. So somehow universities have to look at this too in terms of modeling. What kind of thinking you are putting in. Every activity will have some action further down the stream, whether these trade-offs are being managed. I put some examples here, but this is just an idea. We do not have much work done, looking at the social, economic, and environmental aspects of trade-offs. We have a lot of work on economic aspects, costs and benefits and so forth. But if you take the 3 parameters and the subsequent activities there's a lot more. Probably we are hitting a new world of trying to analyze what we are trying to do. It is something very exciting, but it's also something kind of not very well covered, not at least in the way we do work so far. FAO, of course, we proposed how to transform, as I'm going through this, how increasing knowledge, experience, partnerships. These are some of our publications. There are plenty more coming, especially from universities. We must have a way to find a way to these talk to each other. They address their core issues, but also are not quite left out. We must rely on knowledge and continuous innovations. Partnerships, transforming through innovations. Very recently, just end of last year, we had a very innovative symposium where we tried to talk of innovations, not just for the heck of innovations, not just digital technology, but something which matters to the farmers, something which is directly, and here is the crunch, what I was talking about. Institutional innovations are far more important than technical, some quick technical quick fix. Quick technical quick fixes are nice, exciting, they are gadgets, but to reshape, rethink, reevaluate and transform how to make an institution fit for this kind of job is a real issue, real challenge. And farmers really have to show the way. Somehow they have been on the forefront. We may not recognize all of it. Somehow they have been at the forefront in many, many ways. In their own small ways, there has to be to show it. But so are the new digital innovations, which are becoming, which is kind of replacing the word, but I don't want to say it. Innovate does mean to do something new with the old different techniques in a different place. But yes, this requires learning each other. This requires learning from each other, using and applying our ability to converse and deploy things. Partnerships, again, this is something from our website. We now do recognize FAO is not in this alone. FAO will never be able to do it alone. There has to be. And I have been working with partnerships for a while now, and I find one of the things that we have been able to do with South-South, North-South cooperation and with parliamentarians very interesting. You know, we never think of parliamentarians as big partners, but we are finding if we want to engage in policy issues, these are the people who are directly talking to the people. Sometimes we have to bring that alliance together. So recently, in Africa, what we have tried to do is bring the universities, academia, which is our strongest partner, to the parliamentarians and have a conversation there so that you can see all the good things that are coming out of the thinking, knowledge, and so forth. Is it applicable? Because most of the time, this conversation has never happened. But can we make some changes there to bring those things? It's very exciting when you hear the parliamentarians wanting to know more, wanting to understand more, wanting to know how SFA matters for their farmers. We are trying, we are looking at it, but there are no quick fix, no straight-cut answers. It is just learning by doing. Some of the tools we have, plenty of tools we have here, Save and Grow, documentation. This is the flow we want to follow when we talk about farmers' sustainability, transforming to sustainability, how to do this, what to measure, what to use. We keep asking what to use, but again, these are global tools, but very relevant. We just have to find a way to be able to bring them in our work more. I'm sure you have done similar work here, which I don't know about, but I would like to hear more about it, and where you see this flow, this continuum can be strengthened and how. So in summary, then, all I want to say before I move to the measurement of sustainability is that it's not a process, it's not an endpoint. We all recognize that. I think very, very important to understand is that we are not really trying to say everything has to become sustainable overnight. We just have to take this into our consideration so that we are looking at this interface more strongly than ever. We have to, and if we are working in food and ag sector, our clients have to be the smallholders first and foremost. There is no doubt about it. They are real custodians of the food security. We may not agree with it, we may not like to think about it, but it is a fact. Women in particular within these smallholders are the topmost custodians. Again, unrecognized, underpaid, undervalued, everything. It cannot go on. It just cannot go on, particularly because we are talking of so-called transformational change. You, me, university, politician, country, all of us somehow have committed ourselves to this. So how is it going to work if we don't take the basic core values, which we know need to change? How to do that? Now I move to something, the measuring. This is the very academic, very interesting, research-oriented, but again, and for this I took the example of SDG 2. SDG 2, if you look at SDG 2, this is what they are saying, a heck of a lot of things. End hunger, achieve this, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. And for each of those, there is an indicator for those 4 blocks. I chose the one for sustainable agriculture. The target is this, and again, if you read it carefully, it seems everybody's work has been put there together. Its entire FAO has been captured there somehow, I feel. But it's true for even any country, any ministry of agriculture, any work to do with food and agriculture, ranging from soil quality to resilient agriculture practices. So the purpose here, by putting this together, is not to overwhelm and scare people away. The purpose is to show the complexity of sustainability. It's not something to be taken lightly. It should ring a bell that when we are saying this, we need to mean it somewhere. The complexity is, and the measurement for sustainability was given as proportion of agriculture area under productive and sustainable agriculture. Now, what does that mean? How much agriculture you have and how much of it is sustainable. So how will you know? You may know you have a lot of agriculture going on, but how would you know? That is so this is an SDG indicator. Nobody has done this before. Nobody has measured it before. None of this was done. So an FAO is always given these kind of interesting tasks, which nobody has done before, to find an answer. So FAO had to come up with some kind of way to measure. Let's see what we had to do. So we had to develop some sub-indicators. And these sub-indicators had to show these things. It had to show the impact. It had to show the awareness. It had to show the behavior indicators, the practice, and the perception. I don't know if they have statisticians here, but I think they will feel very worried when we talk of behavior and practice and perception all together. But these were the criteria that were laid down. So one had to look at this in a holistic way. That's the point. And how holistic and how could be done, remembering always we are not going to go for it the full blast. We just have to find a way to connect in the multiple dimensions. And this is what we did. Somehow, sustainability indicator measurement, which was given to FAO, and it has just been approved at the international level, was subdivided into 11 sub-indicators. These 11 sub-indicators were needed. So you see, it's not one or another. From land productivity to land tenure, and I think land tenure is the most difficult one most of the time, to be able to measure. We are here not measuring absolutes, we are measuring the progress. We are measuring how we will get there. We are also not going to be able to measure black and white scenarios. It is the gradual progress, but these are the indicators you need to look at. There will be trade-off within these indicators. there will be nexus within these indicators. There will be more synergies. But if we can somehow figure out a way out of these, for these things, we are probably going to be one step ahead in terms of sustainability. So essentially what I wanted to say, by looking at these particular indicators, you see we are capturing a lot of areas, right? This is why I want to say that food and agriculture offers multiple entry points. If you can play with those, you are able to hit practically all the SDGs. Somehow you are there because they are connected. And this is the kind of, it's a smart entry point to be able to both look at the country's prosperity, country's priorities, country's needs, research, at the same time hit a lot of these goals. So this is just a visual representation. It will vary from country to country, but in the book we tried to be able to show how some things will be more than others, but food, agriculture sector has a role to play across the 17 goals. Now the question is, how can you contribute to all this? What does it mean for you sitting here and what you do? I think the first thing is to open minds. That's the most important thing that has to happen, is to adopting an interdisciplinary approach. And this means doing, not talking. This means walking to the next person's room and having a conversation and figuring out. This really means learning new ways of cutting the cake. This really does mean figuring other ways of looking. Also, I can assure you there will be much more opportunities in future. I don't know is a good word, but because increasingly this kind of cross-lateral thinking is in demand, even in the job sector. It is not good enough to be a computer scientist if you cannot connect the computer to the area of work that you are taking. It's just like a lawyer sometimes. You have to know a lot of things. In particular, I think raising awareness is something that AUB can do terrifically well. Your network is very strong. Your alumni is very strong. There are many social media and other ways of doing these things. But we need a champion. We really do need a champion to put this forward and to look at it from your own perspectives. SDGs are aspirational. They are there, but we don't have to worry about that. We just have to look at what are the new approaches, integrated, innovative, challenging ways that you can cut food loss and waste, improve food safety, improve water health quality, have a link between the two. What is it that can be done? So that's what I wanted to complete with the key messages that I hope I have been able to show you, that food and agriculture and fisheries and forestry are at the center of the 2030 agenda. It requires a sectoral plan, going beyond sectoral planning. It requires this kind of an ambience where you have the ability and the liberty to be able to interact and engage. Most of the time, some of the best inventions, discoveries, Nobel laureates and others, they have been doing their work, but also talking to each other. You will find it's very, very clear in many ways. So somehow we are not reinventing something new. We are simply trying to say, this is a sector ripe for change. This is a sector where we will need more youth than ever before, even if ag is not sexy and nobody likes a farmer, we still got to eat. And I can tell you there are far more ways these days to do ag than simply not thinking about it. This is something very, very attractive for a physicist to think of how to grow food. I am sure you have heard of many good examples where they are trying to bring these interactive things and they are finding opportunities. So let us look at the positive side. Perhaps SDGs were timely to be able to open this partnership and dialogue that we are having together. So I thank you for your attention.